Okay, this is MIS Chapter 1, Part 2. I'm talking about computer-based information systems. There was a little bit of a delay in getting the Chapter 1, Part 1 video out there and the Chapter 1, Part 2 and 3 videos out there. I did them all at the same time. I just recorded the Part 2 and Part 3 videos a little bit past the 15-minute time frame. YouTube doesn't take them as in an HD format over 15 minutes, so I have to re-record. Now, I got my little stopwatch going here so I can make sure I don't get over that 15-minute time frame. So the computer-based information system deals with hardware, software, databases, telecommunication, people, and procedures. Now, the hardware and software and database, let's talk about hardware and software first. They're pretty obvious. These are the things you see in front of you. These are the servers, the notebooks, all of the devices that you need to be able to use a computer-based information system. That can include the mobile phones. That can include the tablets, Androids or iPads. So that's all the hardware stuff. Now, along with hardware, we want to talk a little bit about the specs, the internal parts of a server or a computer. So what you have internally, and the book talks about some of these pieces in a later chapter, in chapter 2. You have the microprocessor, you have memory, you have hard drives, you have a lot of stuff inside that machine, and servers have larger processors or quad-core processors, or multi-core processors, I should probably say. A lot of memory, a lot of hard drive space. That's to hold storage for all the users out there and applications. And then software is pretty straightforward as well. We see that in Windows 7 on the client side, or Linux or the Mac OS. On the server side, we see Windows 2008. You may start to see Windows 2012. And the Linux operating system as those primary network operating systems or server operating systems. So that's the software piece. Databases, tell me what doesn't use a database. When you go and purchase something on your credit card, you have a database transaction. When your computer, your client, logs onto a network, there's an authentication that takes place. Your username and password is authenticated against a database someplace that holds that information to verify that you have an account and should access that system. So databases are a huge part of any computer-based information system. Telecommunications, that's actually the medium that gets you from here to there. So from your home, you go through an ISP, and from my home in Townsend, I go through Montana Internet to actually get out onto the main backbone of the Internet. And remember, the Internet is just simply a series of smaller networks tied together, and that's essentially it. And that's pretty simplified, but that's essentially it. Now, there are people and procedures that are part of a computer-based information system. When I talk to my students in the on-site MIS course, these two categories students just didn't really identify with or understand that people and procedures are part of a computer-based information system. Now, with people, those are all of your stakeholders, your end users, your database administrators, also known as DBAs, your network admins, your web server admin folks, your CEO, the chief the chief officer of the company, the CIO, the chief information officer. Okay, so all of these people are all parts of the people who run a computer-based information system. Now, the procedures are things along the lines of backups. Okay, how do you back up information? Is it important to back up information? Absolutely. So if you don't back it up, sure enough, what's going to happen? You have a lightning storm, a power surge, and pop goes your hard drive with all of that information on there. So it's very important to back up that hard drive, back up that information. Procedures also are things like if you have some trouble with a particular system, who do you do? Who are you going to call? So and what do they do? So you follow a set of procedures, and all of these should be listed, and that's part of that computer-based information system. Now, as we look here under technology infrastructure, I just wanted to point out that infrastructure includes all the hardware, software, databases, telecommunications, people, and procedure. And really, let's just X off people and procedures within this definition. So when you hear the term infrastructure, you're really talking about that hardware and telecommunications piece primarily, but the software and database goes with it. Okay, so let's go to that next slide. Computer-based information system, we talked about this. Let's just quickly go over it. Hardware consists of computer equipment used to perform input processing and output activities. Software consists of computer programs that govern the operation of the computer. Databases organize collection of facts and information. Telecommunications networks and the internet. Networks. Okay, networks are connect computers and equipment enabling communication. When you think of a network, you think of the local area network, or LAN, at Helena College, for instance, or the local area network within your own business. So that's what you think of. That's what I think of when I think of network. Now, the internet is simply a collection of those networks that are all tied together. An intranet is that internal network, and we're looking at this point. Intranet is an internal network that allows people within an organization to exchange information and work on projects. When you're a student at Helena College and you're on campus, you log on to that internal system, you're onto that intranet. When I'm working from on-site, I log onto the system. I'm part of that intranet. Now, when I go ahead and come home and work from home, as I do over the weekend, I go in and connect. I have to provide authentication, usernames and passwords, and then I can connect to that system, that internal system. And that is also considered part of that intranet. It's an internal network that allows people within an organization to exchange information and work on projects. Okay, so that's an example of an intranet. Now, an extranet, as we're looking at this point, extranet is a network that allows selected outsiders, such as business partners and customers, to access authorized resources of a company's intranet. So what that might be is the federal government and the Department of Education specifically may need to access certain parts of our network based upon federal regulation and be able to pull information out of our student records. And again, it's all based upon federal regulation and all. So that would give that outsider, the federal government, access to our system. Okay, so that's an example of an extranet. Okay, the next deal we want to talk about, and we're at 7.5 minutes, different kinds of information systems. So a transaction, and we'll look at the top, a transaction is any business-related exchange, such as payments to employees and sales to customers, or registering for classes, or running a transcript. Those are all transactions. Typically, we think of transactions as a per cost, on a per cost basis. Well, if you are registering, yes, I guess that is per cost. But if you're registering for classes, then that really is a non-cost item or non-cost issue. If we look at the so with that said, a transaction processing system, or a TPS, is an organized collection of people, procedures, software, databases, and devices, where have you heard that before, used to record completed business transactions. In this particular example, we're looking at hours worked times the pay rate. This is the transaction, the payroll transaction processing, gives you the payroll checks. Now, and let's talk about management information systems and DSS before enterprise resource planning. So management information systems is a kind of system that provides routine information to managers and decision makers. And typically it creates reports that are daily, weekly, monthly. A great example is our enrollment reports. Over the summer, we keep track of, Helena College keeps track of how many students are in which classes, how much they're filling, are they full, are they at 20, because oftentimes we cannot have more than 20 students in a computer class because of the number of computers in the lab. Closes the courses, and all these other kinds of things. So, additionally, what if we only have 2 or 3 students in a course? Well, these weekly reports prior to a semester start will enable us to know that we probably should start thinking about canceling that course, moving those students into another course. A decision support system supports problem-specific decision making. So what we might see over a course of 2 or 3 years is that the growth of a particular program, and this is based on a multitude of management information system reports, that the enrollment in a particular programming is increasing, so much so that it may demand an additional faculty member to teach that particular program. Now, in enterprise resource planning, we'll go to this point, set of integrated programs that manages the vital business operations for an entire multi-site global organization. It doesn't just have to be global. It can be kind of regional. For Helena College, an example of the enterprise resource planning is that student information system that you log into and register through. Because as part of that system, it's not just the student piece, but there's also HR. There's also a financial aid component. There are many different modules that go into that enterprise resource planning. It says a set of integrated programs, okay, that manage stuff. There's a set of integrated programs within our student information system, or banner, that actually goes in and acts as our own local or regional, because some of that's run out of Missoula, the college at Missoula. The university at Missoula, my apologies, creates an ERP. Okay, so MIS, decision support, and ERP. Oh, I wanted to show you this. That's right. Look at this, a common database. Well, you have your marketing management stuff, you have your manufacturing, you have other management information systems, and financial management. All of your information is in one single big can in an ERP kind of system. Management information system may be this particular little link. A decision support system may be here. What does that still tell you? All the information is still the same. So that information is really flexible. You can pull that information out in any particular format, in any variety, if you will. So that relational database is sitting out here. It's a common database. And once again, you can pull all kinds of information out of this common database because of the nature of the database, in that it's relational. Okay, so TPSs were developed first and used first in business just to help with everyday operation. MIS came along a little later in the 60s, and then decision support in the 70s, and then more specialized systems today. Okay, really quickly, specialized business information systems. Expert, let's just go directly to virtual reality and multimedia. Think about training. Think about training systems, Walmart training systems, for instance. That's really multimedia. Think about, for virtual reality, think about simulations, online simulations, medical training kinds of simulations. And multimedia is a big part of that. So these are different kinds of systems, specialized information systems. Okay, really quickly, you'll see the terms business to business, business to consumer, consumer to consumer. Which is the biggest segment of mobile commerce or e-commerce? Well, it's business to business. The example being that I like to use, think about that Dell computer, that single Dell computer that you've purchased. You made just one purchase, didn't you? Well, that company has worked with probably Seagate, with Giga, with a number, probably 10 different providers or manufacturers of these the smaller equipment, has ordered all of these parts and pieces, brought them to Dell, and then made the desktop computer after that. So in that example, there's like a 10-to-1 ratio between business to business e-commerce, which is B2B, and business to consumer. Now that ratio isn't exactly that, but that's an example. So business to business has a huge segment, market segment within the electronic commerce industry. And then part 3 will start in a few minutes.